Hey everyone, Patrick O'Gorman here, coming to you from New Braunfels, Texas. Today I'm going to show you how to create a Power Apps component framework control that communicates with the Power Apps web API. We're going to do that in under 10 minutes. If you see my screen here, you notice that I have Visual Studio Code open. I do assume that you've either got Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio to work with. I also assume that you've installed NPM as well as the Power Apps component framework CLI or command line interface. Let's get started. First thing I like to do is a little bit of housekeeping. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new directory because I like to keep my directory, my projects clean. And so I'm going to create a controls directory. Whoops. And then I'm going to create a directory for the control that we're building in this demo. And I'm going to CD into that as well. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to run the initialize command from our Power Apps component framework command line interface, and it looks like this: PCF init, and then we give it a namespace of PCF Demo. You can give it whatever you want, and then a name, an awesome API PCF control. The template type is field, and that means that we're going to use an actual data field on our entity form to render this PCF control. All right, so it says it was good. It says don't forget to run npm install to install those project dependencies and give you any of those node modules you may want to use when you're developing this PCF component. All right, so let's do that. Npm install. All right, we mentioned we're doing this as a template type of field. So while npm is installing, we're going to hop over here to our Power Apps environment. We're going to take a look at this solution here. I've got this Power App Demo core solution. I've got the contact entity in there. You're going to have to forgive me, but we're going to go to the classic interface for this one. And so I'm over in the classic interface. The one thing I want to do is add a new kind of a dummy field. I mean, it's a field, but I call it a dummy field. A placeholder for PCF. Whatever. Name it whatever you want. We'll leave it single line of text. That's fine. We can save and close that. We don't need it for anything else right this second. And we'll make sure that that's published just so we don't run into any issues when we're trying to use that later. Let's hop back over to code. Bam, we see that that's done. All right, so you know what npm install does? It installs these node modules. But what did that init command do? Well, it actually installed a bunch of these config files here, these JSON files that you see. That's why I actually opted to have this additional folder, additional directory after the controls directory. But let's open this guy up, and you can see here we've got the two most important files right now, and that's our index.ts, which is really the meat of our component, and then we've got this manifest file. So for now, we're going to work in this index file. Excuse me. The first thing we want to do is I'm going to do a little bit of cheating and copying and pasting, and I'm going to copy and paste a couple member variables in here. One is going to be for our context, the other is going to be for our div container. So this context, the context is actually passed into this PCF control, and it's the same context that's used for any other control on that form. The other thing to note that's a little bit different than web resources is this PCF control will actually render at the same time as all of these other, any other control on that form. All right, so we've got that. And the next thing we want to do is we want to put a little bit of code into our init. And what we're doing here is we're actually going to set our private member variable context to the context that's passed into our control, right? Next thing we want to do is we want to create a new div element and set that to our container member variable, and then we're going to append that to the main container of the component. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this button element. We're going to give it a few little attribute values here. Press me to create contact. We're going to give it an ID, and then we're going to assign it a button event handler. That's underlined right now because we haven't added it yet, but I'm going to go up here to my cheat sheet and copy and paste that. We're going to scroll down here to the bottom and make a little room, and we're going to paste that in there. So let's take a look at this. What's it doing? Create contact button on click event handler, right? So we're first creating an array. That array is going to represent our record. This first name and last name, these need to match the field names in Power Apps exactly. So we know that for the contact, out of the box contact entity, we've got a first name and a last name field. We're going to create Patrick PowerUp. All right. Then we're going to use that context web API create record method. We're going to pass it the name of our entity, which in this case is contact. We're going to pass it that data array, and then we're going to go ahead and handle our success and our failure. For our success, we're simply going to say yay. For our failure, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what that error might be. All right, so we'll save that file. One other thing we need to do is take a look at this control manifest. If you look at this control manifest, again, just like the index, there's a lot of stuff already stubbed out for you. The only thing we really care about in here is this web API feature. We want to make sure that that's included. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that guy and get rid of that guy. And then we really don't need any of this. We'll get rid of those guys too. So now all we have left is one uses feature node inside of our feature usage, and that's all we need. So let's go ahead and save that as well. All right, npm is done. We've got this here. Now what do we need to do? Well, we're pretty much done. Let's go ahead and authenticate to our Power Apps environment, and we're going to do that right here from Visual Studio Code. So you can see pack auth create. We pass it a URL. That's the one I want. A dialog comes up. I'm already logged in, so I don't have to provide my credentials again. I just select which account I want to use. All right, so we've done that. And then finally, we want to do our PCF push, providing it a publisher prefix. It's a lot of P's. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to take this component, it's going to build this component like similar to npm run build, which we can also do in here if we're just working with working with this control locally. We want to make sure it still builds. We can just do that npm run build. But what we're doing here is we're actually doing that and so much more. We're bundling this component up into its own solution. We're deploying this solution to the Power Apps environment that we just authenticated again. It's pretty cool. The other thing I really like about this is it gives you some nice feedback as it's going through the steps. I think there's 7 steps. Kind of tells you what it's doing along the way, including something we always all forget to do every once in a while, and that is to publish our customizations. It will actually do all of that for us right here from Visual Studio Code. So let's hop over here really quick. We can take a look at this solutions list. There should already be a solution in there. And we see it, Power Apps Tools, Power Up. Okay, but we are working in this Power App Demo core solution. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to keep working in the classic interface. So we're going to open up Forms. Let's hop back over here, see where we are. Look at that. We are done. 7 of 7 steps, 100% customizations have been published. Woohoo! All right, so let's bounce back over here, and we can see our contact form. We're going to open that guy up. And let's maximize it really quick. And so let's come over here and let's look for that that field that we just created, and we can see a placeholder for PCF. Let's grab that. Oops, didn't get it. Let's grab that and let's drag it over here. A couple things we need to do to that. Let's open it up by double clicking it, and we get the properties pane. Let's first of all, let's uncheck this. We don't want to see that ugly label. Let's click on the controls, and then we see this control text box. Now we want to click add control, and if we scroll through here, you can see an awesome API PCF control. That's our guy. Select that, say add, and don't close it yet. Make sure that you select web and possibly phone and tablet if those are the other interfaces or devices that you want to render this control on, but we're just concerned about web right now. So let's go ahead and select web. We'll click OK. We're going to save this, and then we're going to publish this form. Once that's done, we'll shut this. We'll go back over here. We can take a look at our list of contacts, so there's no smoke and mirrors. You can see that we actually have 13 contacts. All of them are these sample records that Power Apps actually provides for you if you choose to install the sample data. We did, obviously, so let's open up a contact, and you can see now we have our press me to create contact button. We're going to go ahead and press that, and you can see, yay, so we know that a record should have been created if that response is correct. So let's hop back over to our active contacts list, and you can see right there, Patrick Power Up. And because there's really no good practices involved with this little demonstration that I put together, you can do this as many times as you want and create as many Patrick Power Up contacts as you'd like. All right, so what do we see today? We saw very quickly how to create a Power Apps component framework control, how to bundle that in a solution and deploy it right from Visual Studio Code, then add it to our forms. All right, I hope this was helpful. Thanks for stopping by.